So welcome everybody. My name is Elisa Kirchhofer. I am Marketing Director with Idioma Education and Consulting. We are so excited to be presenting Surviving the App-ocalypse with our very own Maureen Lamb. Maureen teaches Latin and methodology courses with us. She does presenting with us. She does kind of whatever tech, especially webinars and things that we need. Basically what happens is Maureen is always up to date on what's going on, and she reaches out to us and says, hey, can we do this? And we say, yes, please, in service of what you guys need. So
because you guys are awesome. That's why.
Yeah, so I'll let Maureen take it away. And like I said, feel free to pop into the chat if you have questions, and we'll get going.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Elisa. Welcome, everybody, to Surviving the App-ocalypse, which I thought was a very clever title that, that Melissa came up with. If you want to follow along for accessibility reasons, as always, feel free to use the QR code or feel free to use the tiny URL link. Shockingly, someone had already taken the name App-ocalypse, so you're going to have to use App-ocalypse 24 for that one. So it's tinyurl.com/App-ocalypse 24. Or just feel free to use the URL link. I mean, the QR code. There we go. Brain working now. All right. So I don't know about you, but I was really shocked to hear first about Jamboard, because Jamboard's been my jam for a while now. Jamboard, I have so many Jamboards, literally hundreds of them. And when they said they were retiring Jamboard at the beginning of the school year, I was very, very sad. It's something that I've been using for a really long time for collaborative whiteboards. So obviously it's something that we will persevere and use other collaborative whiteboards that we're going to talk about today. But I was really sad about that. And then Flip came out of nowhere. I don't know. I couldn't believe that they had been bought by Microsoft like that. And they were one of those tools that were so committed to staying free for education. And the fact that they're no longer free just makes me pretty sad. So there's a lot of things to unpack there. And I know that all of us are feeling probably a little disappointment about this, but there are things we can do. And so that is what I want to talk about today. Ooh. I know, so sad. Flip was a surprise. And if you know what this this is, then you're as old as I am. Like, just why is this happening to us? Why? It was a real surprise. And I think that we have to get clever and we have to be flexible because the tech world is ever changing. The one constant in life is things are always going to change. And so as much as we love things and we love tech and we become attached to tech, we have to know that things are going to grow and change over time. I used to love my live journal back in like 1999 and that's gone. Or MySpace. Like, there are a lot of things that are going the way of the dodo in terms of tech. So we have to think about creative solutions. And what will we do without Flip and Jamboard? Because those are two things that teachers use all the time. So let's think about what we're going to do. Oh no, Stephanie, you're losing Quizlet. Oh, and Edpuzzle. Oh my goodness. Talk to me about, send me an email later because I had a really interesting conversation with Quizlet people and they are actually up to privacy standards. So a lot of districts are saying they're not, but they actually are. So maybe I can help you have some ammunition for that one. But oh, I'm so sorry. That's such a bummer. Oh, goodness. Yeah, it's really tough. The great thing about Flip was the functionality. It was free. And I think that students love to take videos of themselves. And so, especially during the pandemic, I remember having students do flips for me because I never got to see their faces when they were coming to school in masks. It was wicked hard to see them and it's hard to picture someone when you don't know what their nose looks like. I know that sounds really weird, but like the whole face experience just wasn't happening. And I love being able to see my students' facial expressions. So I know that was something that was really powerful for me. I also use Flip at the beginning of the year to have students introduce themselves in a way that's private, but a way that they can let us know like what are their names? How do they want us to pronounce their names? What pronouns do they want us to use? Things like that. So Flip became a space where Students could tell me about their learning style, what they needed in class, and they could do it in a way that was private, but they could also share a little bit about themselves. Because as we all know, when a student's writing you an email or texting you or something, it's a different experience than when you're either talking to them face to face or when you have a little video of them, because there's something different in communication with facial expression and the way your voice changes. And so for me, that was so powerful to have students introduce themselves that way at the beginning of the year. So I'm really going to miss that. I'm also going to miss it for discussions. I liked the way that students could go back and forth and discuss with videos, discuss with text, and also use emojis. Don't underestimate the power of emojis. Emojis are really cool. And oftentimes, if my students are distracted by other things, if I say, hey, do an emoji retell of this, they're like, yes, I am on board. Emojis all the way. So for me, I think that's something I will definitely miss, is the functionality. But never fear, there are several apps that can do the same thing. And there are some that have just kind of like jumped all on board with this. Like, yes, I am taking over this spot now. So we're going to talk about some of these different things you can use. So let's talk about some alternatives to Flip. By the way, did anyone else use it when it used to be Flipgrid? And then all of a sudden you look down at your phone one day and you're like, oh my gosh, what did I download on my phone? Because they changed their logo to that little, like, I don't know. I was like, oh no, my phone's been hacked or something. But it was just the new Flip logo. I remember that was a little scary one summer. So one of the first things I would say is check your LMS. I know, Olivia, me too. I call it Flipgrid too. Even though it's been a Flip for years, it's just still in my head as that. So check your LMS. I know that while Google Classroom can do video uploads is a little clunky, but you can definitely do it. The thing I would use in Google Classroom if you're doing something like this, again, to get the tone of the voice, to get the way students were giving feedback back and forth and Flip with vocals, I would definitely use something like Mote embedded within Google Classroom. So you can have students hear your feedback and then they can hear feedback from each other as well. So Stephanie, that's actually a really good question. And I have a meeting with Google tomorrow where they're going to answer some of those questions. I got randomly selected for an educator panel about stuff. So I'll let you know, keep you hosted. They want to talk about AI and they want to talk about Google Classroom. So I'm like, oh, okay. Hopefully this means video, but it's something people have been asking for a long time and it just isn't there yet. I use Canvas right now at my school. And Canvas, while a clunkier platform than Flip, does in fact allow students to submit videos through Canvas Creator, the video platform back and forth. For Schoology, you can upload videos, but I would caution with things like Google, Canvas, and Schoology, they are a little bit picky when it comes to the video file type that they will accept. We found this out the hard way during APs back during the pandemic. I don't know. Was anyone else proctoring APs during the pandemic? No, just me? Okay. So I was proctoring the Spanish and French APs at my school as the language department chair. And unfortunately, AP had made it so that their system only accepted certain video files and every kid was using their cell phone and it was not accepting the cell phone video file from an iPhone. So that was kind of dramatic and hard to deal with. So something to keep in mind is that if you're using something like Google Classroom, Canvas, Schoology, or PowerSchool, and students are uploading videos, you're going to want to make sure they're using a video file type that is compatible with your LMS. Because if they're not using a compatible video type, file type, that's going to be a problem. I know, a little nitpicky thing, but it's something to work out. I know that if you go to IT at your school, they'll probably say just use your LMS, but those are some problems you might encounter if students are doing videos on their phone. Just wanted to make sure you knew that one. So check out your LMS first. Go to the things that are free and available to you as a teacher. I love free stuff. Not all the stuff I'm showing you today is free, but if you get stuff for free, why not? The next one is Chat.io, and Chat.io is really cool. I know some of you went to the Idioma webinar on Chat.io. I had a really good talk with the creator of Chat.io when this whole Flip thing was going down. And Chat.io is actually, or Chat.io is going to be a really good platform for this. It is growing. It is tiny right now, but it will get better. It already making your post public or not public, that came out of a conversation I literally had with the creator of Chateo last week. So I'm really excited about a platform like this because it's created for language teachers and it's created by a single person. So they're extremely responsive to feedback. And I think as language educators, it's really important that just like Flip was incredibly good about having teachers giving feedback, Chateo does the same thing. And so for me as a teacher, I'm like, someone's listening to me and someone knows what I need. This is awesome. Oh, sorry, Steve and Steph Ricci von Hausen. I was just mentioning that the first place you should check out is your school's current LMS, your current learning management system, and see what is available within your current not language, oh my gosh, learning management system, because that's something that's probably freely available to you. Chateo is pretty awesome though. I really like that it accepts, I'm sorry, I went forward too quickly. It accepts pictures, videos, and files. And because when I go to play with something, I immediately am like, ooh, what can I do with this? It is accepting all file types currently. So you will not run into that issue I talked about with the LMSs. It will accept videos straight from a kid's cell phone, which for my students is awesome. And Chateo also has an app. So right now, Elizabeth, it is free. Yes. So it's great. You go in there, you create a class, and then you put assignments in the class. Another great thing about it is you can choose whether it's public or private. I know that Flip had some issues with that, with the public and private stuff. I had one of the last public accounts for Flip because of the work I was doing with them. And it was really weird because I would get all sorts of strange comments. But it's really nice that there is that choice with Chateo, and it is still relatively small. So that's nice. And yay, responsivity. But the fact that it accepts all file types is pretty cool right now. I think that another cool thing is that it's already split up so that you know what type of assessment to give. And so, for example, Speak Up would be for interpretive activities. So that would be for listening activities largely, or to have some sort of text and then do some sort of listening prompt or, speaking prompt or video prompt based on that. And so really it's taking the ACTFL standards and it is splitting it up really for language teachers. So that's what I really like about Chateo. It's based on what language teachers need. They also have Say What for interpersonal activities. And again, this could be students uploading video responses. This could be students doing interpersonal watching and responding, or interpersonal texting and reading and texting back and forth. And so it has the option for that as well. Chateo also has Show Off for presentational activities, again, with using either voice recording or video. So another thing that people were using Flip for, that was actually something I used Flip for even recently with my students. For their final presentations for this year, I had students do a rough draft presentation. I don't like when students get up there and just try to wing something. I think a presentational task is a polished task. They need a draft with feedback before they're going to do their final product. And so for me, every presentational task needs that kind of dress rehearsal. And so students did their dress rehearsals on Flip this year, and it was really great. And that's one of the things I'm going to miss about it. But it's something that you could have students do before that they're doing something. They do a show off, they hand in that presentational video, you give them some feedback, and then they do that presentation in class. That way they get the feedback they need to have a really polished product at the end of it. And finally, Chatterbox, which I found very intriguing, is where you can upload files that students can use as they're doing each of these activities. And one of the things that I talked about with the creator is this could be something like a chat mat. I love chat mats. If you want to ever talk chat mats, Canva is my favorite for that. But I find that my students, especially my Latin 1 students, just they come in knowing almost nothing of the language except, like, you know, chat exit means go out in Latin. And so chat mats are a way to get them talking from day one, give them pictures, give them the tools they need to just start using the language and really getting involved in the language. So something like Chatterbox can help like that. Okay, any questions on Chateo before I move on? Yes, it's free. Yes, you should sign up. And like I said, the creative team is incredibly responsive. So things you want or need, they're going to try to help you out with it. So it's really good. Similarly, Padlet. I was on a phone call with Padlet just last week. They want to talk to teachers. They want to know what teachers want that Flip is leaving behind. And I am really impressed that they have stepped up in such a way. They've also stepped up to offer different subscription offers. A couple of us were going back and forth with them on Twitter because we were saying, hey, this is really expensive for teachers. I'm not sure we can afford that. Now they have they have a whole new subscription level that's a little cheaper, which is actually really awesome. So if you were looking at Padlet and thinking, I can't afford this, I'm not going to do it, they just came out with a cheaper option. Yay! So yes, Twitter can make things happen sometimes. What I really like about Padlet is that students were, yeah, your district pays for. Yes, you want your district to pay for it, exactly, if they can. The cool thing about Padlet is that you can do so many different things with it. Here it shows that you can do a document, you can post a link, you can post a picture, you can post a video, but there's really a ton you can do with it. And Padlet, unlike any other company I know of right now, has made it so you can download your flips right into and upload them right into Padlet, so you don't lose any of the flips that you're currently using. So that's something that's pretty remarkable. They made that right away. They also made their recorder to be more accessible right away. Right away, when their video recorder came out, people were saying, sorry, this isn't as good as Flip because it doesn't have automatic captions. Automatic captions came out literally over the weekend. So they are doing a great job being responsive. Again, if there are things you want, reach out to Padlet. The people are talking and they're getting what they want. It's really nice that you could actually reach out to a lot of these companies and get actual meetings with real humans who are making a difference. So definitely recommend. Oh no, you're still waiting. Heidi said she's still waiting for Flip to send me the download link for all the videos. No, I hope they do it soon. I know it must be a struggle for them right now that they're changing over to Microsoft. That must be a big thing for them. But I hope they get in touch with you because they've been really responsive in the past. And this is just some of the stuff I use Padlet for that I would have used Flip for. So feedback's a great way to do this. So students could put student work up there. They can just give you general class feedback, or something I really like doing is giving students an opportunity to do peer editing. Now, I would caution not to do peer editing unless there's particular guidelines or a rubric, not just, hey, you're doing great, awesome. Although you can't have them use emojis. I know they love emojis. But I would say that if you're giving them specific things to look for, they can give really good feedback on something like Padlet, which is great. Some other ways to use Padlet are collaborative notes. This is something that I think actually puts Padlet a step above Flip, because these collaborative notes are so very helpful. And I just dump a lot of collaborative notes right into Quizlet to create Quizlet sets from them. So it's pretty cool that you can do that kind of app smashing. Not cool if your district says no Quizlet. I'm sorry about that. But I think it's really cool. Collaborative note taking too is a great opportunity. I have students sign notes when they add it to the doc, just so I can see who's adding what and what questions people have. I always have them do their question boxes a different color. So let's say that they're doing white for the collaborative notes. If they have a question for Miss Lamb, they put their questions in blue so that I can notice it right away as they're going through and taking notes on a text or on a reading or on a video or something like that. So really making that quick color differentiation makes a big difference. And it's something you can do extremely easily in Padlet. I really like it for project planning. This is something that I did for Flip. I would have students kind of do a brainstorm of what they wanted to do for their project. And I'd say, okay, you get 90 seconds, do your 90-second spiel of what you want to do. But doing a project planner on something like Padlet can actually be really beneficial, because you can have each student have their own breakout room to do it in, and then you can see everybody's project at once. Or you could have students actually look at each other's project and be like, oh, hey, you want to share resources for that? You're doing something similar to me. I'm doing the constellation Aries and you're doing text about the constellation Aries. Maybe we can combine forces here. So there's a lot of different options here, and there's advantages to everything. Personalized input. So I really like this at the end of a unit or at the end of something, having students say what they like. This particular one's about what snacks student likes. And sometimes I'll ask, you have to poll students, see what their favorite candy is and stuff like that. But it's really most helpful if you're doing something in class and you just want student feedback. Quick student feedback on something like Padlet can be really, really helpful. Again, if they want to take a video of themselves, they can. But I know that even when I was doing Flip a lot, some students would put the emojis over their faces because they didn't want to look at their faces. It was just like during the pandemic when students would turn the cameras off while they were on Zoom, just because they don't want to stare at their face all day. And I get that. So it actually, I think the fact that Padlet has so many different options for student sharing is a real benefit of Padlet. And breakout groups. This is a pretty new feature on Padlet, and it's a feature that I really enjoy. You can make these so that everyone can see them, or you could have students working in small groups, but as a teacher, you could see what everybody's doing. That's what I like. I'll do things like this kind of collaborative work on Google Slides, and then all the kids jump to the wrong slide, and it just drives me bananas. With Padlet, they're all in their own breakout room. They have to link to their own breakout room, but I can see everybody working at the same time. So as a teacher, it's almost like monitoring everyone's computer remotely, except you're just seeing what notes they're putting on there, which is pretty cool. I like being able to see what everybody is doing at the same time. Yes, Marta, I agree. And I think we saw it working so well at our Ed Camp. We used it for our Ed Camp notes to organize them this year. And it worked so well because if you were in a room taking notes, you were taking notes in that room. But then at the end, you had the link to all the notes from all the rooms. So you didn't miss out on anything, which was really cool. And it was a great place for people to share resources. So Padlet's the way I'm going to organize conferences, I think, from now on, because I found it to be so helpful for me. And I also find it to be helpful for my students. I started using it at the end of the school year for students to ask questions as we were doing review for finals. And the breakout rooms were actually really great for getting students together in groups for review. So there's a lot of different things you can do with that. I just liked this. I like to start out class often with some sort of engaging activity. And you could do something like 2 truths and a lie, some sort of poll, again, favorite ice cream flavor, I don't know, whatever it's going to be for that day, and have students fill it out and put their name and just answer the poll question. And that's just kind of fun. And it's a great engaging way to get students to know each other a little better. Because now we're all, I don't know. So I know some people are probably still in school, but my mind's going to the fall right now of what to do. Stephanie asked if I've done something just on Padlet. No, but maybe Elisa will want me to after this. We'll see. I'd be happy to. Awesome. Any questions on Padlet before I move forward? And again, I'm going to give my contact info at the end, and I really mean it. If you want to email me and ask me any questions at any point as you're playing with this, if you have questions, if you run into some issues or something, feel free to reach out. I'm super happy to help. Next, I'm going to talk about Moat. As you see, I've already done an Idioma workshop on Moat, so feel free to check that out. That goes into the nitty-gritty details of a lot of different things with Moat. Moat has just had an upgrade, and I actually have a meeting with Will Jackson from Moat tomorrow because they're soliciting feedback from teacher leaders in world languages right now because they want to know what they can do more for teachers. So I'm pretty excited about the direction that Moat is going in. And the fact that they've included so many more languages is really cool. And again, the best part about Moat from my perspective is that students can hear my voice saying comments. And it's so, I just feel like when I'm typing comments to students, it can be misconstrued or it can sound impersonal, or you can't get sarcasm or humor. And so when you hear the tone of someone's voice, it makes things different. It makes things easier. And I think that being able to do Moat comments has been a real game changer. I'm also not the greatest typist in the world. I only type with one hand. So when I'm using Moat, I'm having it do a transcript, and I could do student comments on it. So I'll get a comment transcript that I can then copy and paste to my LMS for comments, which for me is fantastic. But for student feedback, I think something like Moat is a real game changer because of the hearing of your voice and the fact that you can put the link anywhere. And yes, Stephanie, I love when I was teaching with Google Classroom, it was the coolest because it was integrating with everything. So that's really helpful. But it can really, you can embed it anywhere now, which is great. You can do sticky notes. Play on sticky notes. They love plays on words with motes, and they'll have contests intermittently on Twitter. So if you follow them, they'll give away swag if you can think of clever names for things. On occasion, I won a mote Stanley last week for doing something like that. So if you're on the hunt for swag, you can follow Mote because they give away stuff for cute little contests. But really, it's a great tool, and it's really inexpensive. I've never had to use anything but the free version because hopefully I'm not talking for a long time for student feedback. And if I am, I'm giving different comments throughout what I'm doing. So that's what has worked for me. Oops, nope, I do not want to watch myself. I'm going to talk a little bit about Mizu. Mizu is a little different than Flip. But Mizu is something that I actually have been using a lot. I was not expecting to love Mizu, and I had a meeting with their representatives like, what can Mizu do for me? What can your product do for a Latin teacher? And I was pleasantly surprised that their chatbot is actually quite sophisticated for Latin. Of course, my student Latin speakers are probably the level of kindergarten or first graders when they're in Latin 1. So I had to change the level, but on the whole, it was really cool. So I can set up a dialogue between, and I can make it in Latin, and I can say what I want students to talk about. So for example, when we were just playing around with it, I had the students have a conversation where they were trying to buy bread from the AI chatbot. And so they're asking, how much is the bread? Oh, the bread is two coins. Oh, I only have 1 coin. Are you sure I can't have it for 1 coin? No, you have to have 2 coins. Okay, I'm walking away. Wait, no, I'll give it to you for 1 coin. And so this whole back and forth in really, really good Latin, really grammatically accurate Latin that was simplified so that students can understand, which I thought was fantastic. It's even better for other languages. And another great thing is that you can choose to talk back and forth as well. And so that's been really cool. Oh, Stephanie says, I had trouble with recording voice, but the texting was no problem. Kids loved it as it mimicked texting. Yes. I was getting it to work for the talking part of Latin by the end. It had an interesting accent that I didn't quite understand, but I was figuring it out as we went through. I think it'll only get better. And I hear from some of my Spanish teacher friends that it is working well for Spanish right now. But it was just really fun. And it also does this auto grading thing. I don't trust AI to grade things. Let me just go through quick Mizu over. First of all, for those of you who are having different saying things are not great for COPPA, I know that Mizu is COPPA certified. So it should be okay with that privacy. The cool part is you go in, you share your learning objectives, and then you can drag or drop a file if you want, and it's going to create, you can either create it or it could create something for you. I'm just going to check because I saw, ooh, interesting. Yes, I want to hear that too, Heidi. Then you share it with the student. So you share the link with the student, and so it'll go back and forth. And you can have it pretend to be a person. I may or may not have had it pretend to be Julius Caesar when I was playing around with it, because that's always fun. And then just trying to figure it out. I also had my students who have read part of Cambridge Latin do Quintus, which is really funny. And so they were talking to Quintus from Cambridge Latin, and they had a really good time doing that. And so it'll go back and forth, and it will basically end the meeting when students have demonstrated enough comprehension. And then it will give you AI feedback about the students. And even though I would read through their conversations and grade it on my own rubric, I found that the grades for the students were pretty much on par with the grades I was giving students. So the grades that AI was giving them, and I wouldn't say A, I would say exceeds expectations or goes expectations for me. No, the students do not see the feedback, but you could share it with them. I did not choose to share it with them, but they can see it if you choose to share it with them. Really good questions. Again, Mizu is a relatively, I'm going to go back a sec. Mizu is a relatively new tool. And like I said, the people who are at Mizu are super willing to, oh, Stephanie said that's a paid feature. Yeah, I'm just using the free version for now. But the people at Mizu are also willing to talk. So if you want to talk to them, I would get a meeting in with them because I've already had a meeting with them and they're great. They want to talk to teachers. A lot of these, like I said, the tech world is ever changing. And the way a lot of these companies survive is by getting input from teachers like us. We're the ones who are the best customers for them. So as much as we can give them input to make things better for teachers, the better off we're going to be. Next, we're going to move on to Loom. I know Loom is often used by companies, but I've actually found it to be really helpful for students. And some of my students were actually preferring Loom to Flip even before Flip went away. And so Loom is interesting. It's short videos because we don't want to use the paid version. It's a limit of 25 videos. But the cool thing is students can give feedback on each other's videos if you choose to make them shared with each other. They can also do comments back and forth. And the comments can be a document, a message, but they can also upload a file as a comment. I didn't put that in there. Shoot, I forgot. There's a picture missing. But they can actually respond to each other's videos with videos. So it's one of the functionalities that we used to be able to do with Flip now in Loom. Again, it's very popular with companies. It's not as popular with education, but you can use it with education. And again, you can take a video right from here, which is super cool. I also love a good transcript when you're doing videos with students. It's really nice. A lot of students like to see closed captions with videos so they can follow along with that. And the fact that they do an automatic transcript is really cool. I know that I'm over the limit right now on videos, so it wouldn't let me do transcripts for anything. Again, I always try to figure out, like, how can I get the most things for free on these sorts of things? But if you do get the paid version, you can have the transcript. And you can also have editing privileges. I know that a lot of times students are like, oh, I don't want to put up my video. I want to edit it, or there's a part where I messed up. And so it's nice that if you choose to get the paid version, you can do the video editing with it. I usually just upload mine in Screencastify and do the editing there. I'm not sure you're supposed to do that, but yeah, that's what I do. Excuse me. You can also do video enhancements, which can be nice, especially if students are doing videos in the classroom. You can do a background noise filter, and it's quite good. I know that a couple of other video platforms have that as well. Zoom particularly has an excellent background filter, but Loom also has a good background filter. So if you have a bunch of kids recording in the classroom at the same time, you're not going to be as distracted by background noise, which is really important. Also, you can choose your video audience. You can choose whether or not people can add comments. You can get a notification whenever someone adds a comment. You can allow users to record a video reply. You can allow emoji reactions or not. You could also allow viewers to download your video or not. And you can allow viewers to stitch this video to other videos. So there's a lot of different things you can do with this. Again, I'm hoping they come out with an education version because right now it's clearly geared toward companies, but I find it to be very accessible. And like I said, some of my students even preferred it to Flip this spring. Okay. Any questions on video platforms? I'm sure there'll be more, but I'm going to move on to the next part because I want to give you plenty of time for questions at the end. And I'm running a little slow tonight. Okay, so the functionality of Padlet was basically collaborative whiteboard, or a whiteboard where you can move things around. The favorite part that I'm going to miss is being able to move things forward and back. So you could kind of create a collage and then create layers, and there were things behind things. And while I will show you some platforms where you can do that, it's something that I'll miss because I thought it was really fun to layer things on top of each other. I would do kind of scratch off worksheets for my students where I would color over it and then they'd have to scratch away to see the answer after they had answered. So I'll miss doing fun stuff like that, but I'll show you there are some platforms where you can still do that. So let's talk about some Jamboard alternatives. Mural. So Mural has both free and paid versions, and it also has a lot of education functionalities. We're going to talk about this. And mural, as we know, means wall, and that's kind of what it is, a big wall. A feedback grid is something that can be really helpful. Just like with Jamboard, you have these lovely little sticky notes that you can add things to. So maybe you're asking some questions about a text and students are adding sticky notes with their answers as they put them through. Just like with Jamboard, when students are adding sticky notes, I always have them put their names or initials on the sticky notes, just so I can keep them accountable and see, okay, everybody contributed to this. So that's something I might do. I also always use the blue color as the Mrs. Lamb question color. So when anybody had a question, they would use the question in blue. So I knew whenever I saw blue sticky note, that meant I was answering someone's question. So that kind of color coding can be really helpful. And that's something you can definitely do on Mural. This is just kind of a fun one that I didn't realize you could do with Mural, but I was doing research for this and I thought, why not share this? You can do a school planner in Mural and have a digital planner that has links to things. It looked really cool and they have a template online. So if that's something you're into, feel free to check it out. Just thought it might be cool for teachers. I really like this idea for an icebreaker. I've done similar ones with my students where it's kind of put up the map and put a pin or a dot in the place. If you could have a magical machine that would take you anywhere, where would you want to go right now? It's always fascinating to ask that question, to ask why. It's a great way to get to know students and to kind of, break the ice those first couple of days. And it's fun to do something that's kinesthetic. You could do a show and tell. I did this a lot during the pandemic, but I still do it with students, like show something around campus that in our school kind of mascot is a sundial. So we do like a collection of sundials from around campus. And so it's kind of neat to see people like, I'll send them out on a scavenger hunt and be like, go take a picture of yourself with a sundial. And so then they'll put all their selfies up like on a board so I could see them all doing that. And then they'll come back. Of course, these directions would be in Latin, but it's still kind of fun. They go find the horologuses. Or you could do something like a selfie sketch. This is actually a template that I thought was really cool on the Mural website. And it just provides a lot of little things you can use within a selfie. And I actually thought this might be a really fun kind of guess who game if you did it in reverse. Or what you could do is describe in the target language what a person or an animal looks like. And then the students could go in and try to recreate it as you were speaking in the target language. So that might be a really fun collaborative whiteboard activity using a template like this. And I love some good trivia. Flippity is still my favorite for trivia, but you can also do trivia games. I did a couple in Jamboard. I did kind of Jeopardy style games like this in Jamboard. Again, though, I still love my Flippity, but it's a really fun way to do a collaborative trivia game if you wanted students to do it on their own. I thought this was a really cool idea. I know this is a business model one. Yeah, Flippity is awesome. But what's cool about it is I would use this kind of troika template as a more of a kind of dinner party template. Like you have to interview one person about this, and then you have to interview another person. And for everything, you have to interview 3 people. And so I would have that as a collaborative whiteboard so that as students were taking notes, they would go around and put their answers in there. So that's something I would do on Jamboard that I might do on something like Mural as well. And a kudos wall. Who doesn't like a kindness or a kudos wall where you're just giving anonymous compliments to people? Obviously, as a teacher, make sure you're monitoring this and so nothing interesting ends up on that wall. But it's just a nice thing to have. It's nice for people to offer this. I think that one of the things I was really excited to do this year was at the end of the school year, I had all students write thank you notes. And I said, I'll deliver this to anyone on campus you want. And just please give me the thank you note. And that was really cool. And it's nice for students to take some time for gratitude in their day. Even if it doesn't have anything to do with language teaching, it's to do with being a good person. So I think it's nice to think about gratitude. The next we're going to talk about is actually a really similar tool called Miro. And so again, this is a visual workspace / whiteboard. And again, you can do brainstorming again with these kind of sticky note things, or they could be shapes depending on what kind of whiteboard you're using. You could do mind mapping. So give students a topic and then have them branch off and show different things. I love collaborative brainstorming and mind mapping. I think it's really cool for students to see the directions that other students are going and to be inspired by each other. So that's a really fun thing to do with students. Also retrospectives, like what went well, what did you find challenging? What do you want to stop doing? What should I stop doing in the future? And what do you want your teacher to know? Just these quick, simple questions at the end of assessments, at the end of units, at the end of the year. Having all of this feedback in one place can be very powerful. And task tracking. This would have helped a lot of my students if I had done more of this year. This is something I am determined to do in the future. Just make sure students know what tasks they're going to need to do when, and kind of check it off for me along the way, because sometimes students miss something and then they just have a really hard time catching up. So if there's something where they can literally have a tracker for their tasks, I think that can be really helpful. I think I might do mine in Google Sheets instead, because they have that lovely little pull down menu now. But I think task tracking is something you could do with a collaborative whiteboard as well. User journey mapping. So maybe this is a timeline. Maybe this is someone's timeline through a book. What happens to the main character? What happens to this character? What happens at the end of this? There's a lot of different ways you can use a timeline, but a timeline is something that can be really helpful, especially if you're having students do collaborative events of what happened. Good question. So not separate spaces, but what I would do is I would have students each assigned to a different one. So you can either have them all in one space and then have different places for them to go, or you could have each of them like assigned to a whiteboard. And I'm going to talk about something that's similar to what you're talking about that I actually love. Yes, because that is something I'm going to miss about Jamboard too. And just project roadmaps. What's coming up? What do we need to do? Again, I might use a tracker sheet for this instead, but it's something you can do, and they have templates for it on Miro. Another one that's out there is whiteboard chat. Now, whiteboard chat is great because you can create a class in it. So you can create a class and then see student individual boards. Now, the problem with whiteboard chat is there are individual student boards. You can do collaborative student boards, but you can't do the thing where you see everybody at once very easily. And that's what I really like about different opportunities. So whiteboard chat does work. It's a great thing. It can do a lot of the things Mural and Miro can do, and it's free. There are paid versions, but I think for educators, you have a certain amount that are free, which is great. I would say that, making, excuse me, making each individual student whiteboard is great, but I would say the limitations are with the collaborative whiteboards. Again, you want to be able to see everybody at once. Google Slides, you want to know more about that? Go back and watch my Idioma Google Slide presentation. And if you want me to share the slides from that, I'm happy to do so. I have a lot of templates on there for collaborative Google Slides. Google Slides is still my favorite. I really do believe it's the Swiss Army knife of the Google Suite. It is something that can do a little bit of everything, and I really love it. But it's also something that you could use for collaboration. And sometimes I would even not use Jamboard and just go straight to Google Slides, because Google Slides, you could assign it to everyone, and that was something that was helpful. Oh yeah, Elizabeth, just email me after this. I'm going to put my email in there, and I'm happy to share. Oh, I don't want to listen to myself. No, thank you. Okay. This is something I started using a lot more at the end of the year. Who here uses Canva? And if you don't, you should. Canva's amazing. I think Canva is probably the greatest free K through 12 tool for teachers right now. There is so much you can do with Canva. And every time I go into Canva, I learn more things. So right now they just got I know, Heidi, right? They got a whole new plethora of AI tools that sync with it. And it's just pretty incredible. I'm really you can put music backgrounds now. You can transcribe audio right in there when you embed a video. Murph AI, which is this great AI right now, where it has all different accents for different languages. It's really, really cool. Oh yeah, that's the thing. If you're not K through 12, you do have to pay for it. But honestly, I think it's the best tool out there right now, and they are constantly upgrading. They're not ready to rest on their laurels. And Canva also takes a lot of feedback. So it's another one of those companies where if you reach out and get to the right people, you're going to get a meeting and you're going to be able to say what you need. So that's also really good. But here are just some Canva whiteboards. Oh yeah. Yes, Erin. At the very end, I'm going to be sharing stuff. Thank you for asking. I'll reshare the slide deck at the very end and my contact info if you have any questions, of course. There's some Canva ready-made templates, because if Canva weren't awesome enough already, all the templates out there are phenomenal. And so this is just the 5 W's about a story. This would be so easy to adapt to languages. A story map. Again, I was thinking about ways I can use this with the novellas I'm teaching. Story mapping, and have the students do it. The students would do a collaborative story map, and maybe each group would take a chapter or something. A KWL chart. What do you know? What do you want to learn? And what have you learned? And have it be collaborative so that students can have it there. So you have everyone's feedback there all at once. I know I say that a lot, but that's what I really like. I like seeing all of my students' feedback in one place so that I can do a good reflection on it and know what I have to do better. I love this template. I found Find the Treasure. I feel like it would be so cool to do something like this and give directions in the target language. So students have to figure out what the treasure is, and then they have to figure out why it's important. So I like that this template's right there on there, and I would just change everything to Latin because my students love doing stuff like this. And it's just a really fun way to get students involved and to have to figure out like, okay, why is this the treasure? And also you're probably doing directions at some point, right, left, north, south, up, down, east, west. And so if students get to engage like that, that's really cool. Also, again, when I think I'm impressed by Canva, it always impresses me more. They're doing a new thing with Magic Switch now, where you can just change the design to anything. So let's say your students create a whiteboard brain map and it's awesome and you want to share it with their parents. You can change that into a doc or an email or something. AI will change it for you. And it'd be like, I want to make this into a poster I can print out, and it'll resize it for you, make it beautiful. And so that's something that I think is really, really cool. It can also translate it into different languages, which is also very cool. So Canva just continues to impress. Whiteboard is what I was talking about that I use all the time still. Whiteboard, each student is assigned a whiteboard, but the teacher has kind of the main whiteboard, and you can push things from your whiteboard to the students' whiteboards. So I do this with cartoons. I do this with, I'll give them Latin text and then they have to illustrate the text. I will do this with, here's a passage, underline where the action of the passage is taking place, or here's a passage, write the main idea in English underneath. I have found so many different uses for this. And there are ways to give students feedback as they're going through. You can do a comment, you can do an emoji. There's a lot of things you can do. So I highly recommend watching this webinar if you're interested in using Whiteboard. It still has a lot of free options. Again, I really like free stuff, as I'm sure everyone does. And so that's one of the things I think sets Whiteboard apart. I also like that I can see everyone's whiteboard at the same time. So I can be like, oh, Janie, why aren't you looking at your whiteboard? I don't see you doing anything. What's going on? And another thing it does is it will alert me if they're like taking things from the internet, which is kind of nice too. So it'll turn red or something like that. Sort of like Pear Deck. I would say that I like it because I can kind of do it I can either set it up in advance like you would do with Pear Deck, or I can do it in the moment where I'm typing in the Latin and then sending it to everybody, and it's really quick. It doesn't have that kind of delay function that Pear Deck does. So that's why I end up using it more. And for me, like the fact that I use Pear Deck so often with slides just makes it a little clunkier for my classroom. For me, Whiteboard is quicker. But you have to use what you're comfortable using. And again, you can watch my Idioma presentation on Whiteboard. Okay, I'm about 5 minutes late, so sorry about that, cutting off your question time. But we still have about 10 minutes if you have any questions. And while I'm taking questions, I'm actually going to push forward to my contact info. I should also mention that July 8th, I have 3 new courses coming up with Idioma. So if you want to take a course, Literacy for Language Teachers is coming up. And if you're a Latin teacher or know one, I have 2 Latin classes coming up. But here's my contact info. I am latintechtools@gmail.com, at Latin Tech Tools on Twitter, Latin Tech Tools, I'm kind of boring, on Instagram. I'm Maureen Lamb on LinkedIn. And again, here is the QR code for this. And the tiny URL is tinyurl.com/App-ocalypse24. So any questions? I know I stunned you with too many options. Sorry. It's a lot to think about. And there are two tools that I used all the time. So it's going to be a change. But again, I think that I've learned so much more about things like Mizu and Padlet and even whiteboard chat over the last couple weeks because I've been looking for alternatives. I'm actually excited about learning more and trying to figure out new ways to kind of tackle these challenges.
Well, thank you so much for sharing, Maureen.
Having
Love having you. Everybody, thank you so much for taking time out of your evening. For those of you who are wrapping up your school year, thank you for giving us your time and attention tonight. For those of you who are already done, thank you for taking time out of your summer to join us. We do have another webinar on Thursday. If you teach elementary school or if you have colleagues who teach elementary school Spanish, we have an author joining us, Dr. Francisco Javier Fuentes. He teaches in Arizona, and he has written a bilingual book in Spanish and English, and it's a DEI-focused book, and he's planning on writing some more. So if you're curious about that, go to our events page on the website and check out our courses too. We've got our summer 2 session. I think you mentioned, Maureen, what you'll be teaching. That's starting in July 8th. We would love to have you join us. Yeah, feel free to stick around. Maureen and I can kind of hang out if you have other questions.
Absolutely.
I think Jill had raised her hand. Jill, did you have a question?
Jill, are you still here?
No,
I think you left. Sorry.
Great. That's all right. Well, thanks everybody. Yeah, we'll just hang out.
Stephanie said Kami. Okay. So yeah, I've used Kami before for PDFs, and it's really good for PDFs. So PDF annotation, having students do a worksheet or something like that. Thank you, Heidi. It's really great. I've actually used it a lot in my own research, like as someone who likes to kind of, even though I'm a tech person, I like the physical act of underlining and highlighting things. So Kami can be really great for that. I do know Kami is getting some updates this summer. So I'm not quite sure what those updates will be, but I bet that Kami could be something like a collaborative whiteboard if everyone had the link to that Kami. So that's a really good point. Because you can use any PDF really, or anything you can make into a PDF. So a picture, a document, a map, all sorts of stuff.